listening to the Gettin' Salty Experience podcast.
Might have found the guy who put the fucking fire out tonight, bro. And away we go. Welcome back. We got another hard charger from the 60s. I don't know how we keep doing it.
Keep pulling them out of the air. I don't know what's going on.
You know, once you get one guy on, they all fall like dominoes. Boom, boom. Got to get them. You know, we always say, Ruffy, you got to get them while they're here. Get them while they're hot.
That's it. Yep. We don't know how much longer they got.
Yep. Just ask Dennis Smith. Oh, you can't because we had him on the last show.
Oh, Dennis.
That was it.
At least we got him.
We got him. He's on there now. He'll live on this in infamy. You know what I mean?
He was great though.
It was very good.
I will send you a mug. All right. There you go.
All right. There you go. Well, welcome back to the Gettin' Salty Experience podcast. It's the only one. I told you the only one. They're coming out of the woodwork now, Ruffy, with the drinks. They're drinking on the show.
Are they? I haven't even been following.
Hank called me. He said there's a new one out. Lee was just on it, as a matter of fact. You know, that guy. He was doing
He's hooking himself out to everybody, huh?
Oh man, he's all over the place, man.
I think he needs to get the money.
I think he loves us. Yeah, I think he loves us, but he's a hooker. That's
he's
it.
Getting out there. He's on one where they have a I don't know. Hank was telling me about it. You see that guy who does the cheers, the drink when I'm like, oh yeah,
no,
that's original. Now that's original, ain't it? I don't know where we heard that before.
There you go. I'll send you a mug.
So there you go. Well, I got to play this. I got to do it right for my buddy tonight because he's all hopped up
don't do
tomorrow.
It. Gonzo, he ain't going to be able to. It was on for like 6 minutes before because he didn't know how to shut it off. Oh! Tomorrow night, baby.
Oh, no.
It's out of control over there, guys.
Oh, man.
Now he screwed it up. Good for you, Kobe. Good for you.
Right.
No shit off nobody.
Got to play it out for my boy because they're playing the Devils tomorrow night. Doing
Good
it
for you.
Oh, Susie's back. Welcome back, Susie.
Oh, yes. I've got to get to the chat when we're done.
We got Big Johnny Albanese in there, Robbie Procaccini, Mrs. Procaccini's husband. We got Brian Kay in there. A whole bunch of guys.
That never gets old either.
No, it doesn't.
No,
it doesn't. You all ready for tomorrow night? What are you doing? Give me a typical Ruffy hockey night. You got like drinks out, chips.
No,
what are you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm not good.
What?
I pace for like the 2 hours before a little bit, then I see if there was any interviews that they post.
Yeah.
And then I sit
by yourself.
Try and sit on. Yeah, I can't sit with anybody.
Your kids and wife can't be around.
No.
You're by yourself.
In the playoffs? No, absolutely not.
No.
Playoffs?
I can't have anybody talking to me like any. No, I can't have it. No.
All right. So if they're still playing while we go to Indy, I just stay way away from you. Well, maybe we'll go to different restaurants.
Last year, I think that happened last year. They lost 2. You remember that? They lost 2 games at Pittsburgh. They were down 3-1. We came home and then they won 3 in a row to go to win the series 4-3.
So speaking of Indy, we're going to be out in Indy the 24th to the 29th in booth 10009. And we got a little raffle going on with the boys.
We
from
do.
Source. Yep. So they donated a whole bunch of stuff. They're really cool guys. We love those guys. Jamie and Big Bill. They're raffling off Gonzo. Pull it up.
I got the first one for you. It's going to be the gear bag. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. It's like hovering. And he's getting so good at this.
What did you do? You cropped it? Are you cropping?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we can get our heads in there.
I don't even know.
Who is this guy? I don't even know who he is. Wow, that's the first. We got gear bags. What else do we got?
We got the New York hook.
They're giving away a New York hook. Some gloves, I think, and some.
We got the protective hood.
Oh man,
that looks like a gladiator.
And then we have the gloves.
It's at a round table, that guy. Something I don't know what he's got going. And the gloves. And we're gonna give away a whole bunch of swag. So come to the booth. All you got to do is hit the QR code that Gonzo put together and fill out a little ticket stub with your name and email, and we're going to pull it on Friday. And if you win, you win. If you're not there,
I'm sure we'll be drinking on Friday.
Oh, no, never happened.
Nah.
That's what we're doing there.
Never did that
while we're at it, why don't we pitch? We'll also be in May at Harrisburg at booth 4-3.
18, 19, 20.
18, 19, 20. Pull that up there, Gons. What do they got there?
It's a little grainy, so it's going to be a little. It's a little hard to see the Fire Expo.
It's the
one of my favorite shows, actually.
51st Annual Fire Expo, Friday, Saturday, May 19th and 20th, 10 to 5 on both days at the Pennsylvania Farm Show Complex, bro. They got a whole bunch of stuff going on. Presentation on technical rescue, Allentown Trench Rescue presentation for members of Allentown, live demos, training, $100 gift card giveaways, etc., etc., etc. Come out and see the boys at Lancaster in Harrisburg. While you're at it, get the cold smoked Delmonico steak.
Oh my! Don't tell nobody about that. Don't, because then we won't be able to even get in there. Don't say nothing about it.
All right. Now you can take it away, Gons. We'll knock out the commercials and we'll get our guy in here.
So let's hear from our friends over at Armor Tough. Stand by.
Armor Tough interlocking floor tiles are the best choice to replace new or aging, stained, or cracked concrete or epoxy floors. Here's why. Armor Tough tiles come with a lifetime warranty and are usually installed in 1 or 2 days, depending on the size of your station, with virtually no disruption in daily operation. Armor Tough interlocking tiles are guaranteed from chipping, cracking, peeling, breaking, or staining. Once installed, the tiles are non-skid and non-slip and meet the ADA standards for the friction coefficient. The tiles are stain resistant and impervious to any chemicals or volatiles that are used in the fire service. Once installed, your floor will be easy to clean with just soap and water. Install an Armor Tough tile floor in your apparatus bays, offices, training rooms, workshops, exercise rooms, kitchens, banquet halls, or any other room in your station. Call Vince today for a no-obligation quote at 908-917-7697. Why install a breakable epoxy floor that will need replacing in 5 to 10 years when you could have a floor that will last a lifetime? Drop a halogen on an Armor Tough floor and you won't see any damage. Don't try this with concrete or epoxy. Join the hundreds of career and volunteer fire departments nationwide who have chosen an Armor Tough interlocking tile floor. Armor Tough interlocking tiles are half the price of epoxy and will last a lifetime without issue. Again, call Vince today for a no-obligation quote at 908-917-7697.
There you go. And go see Vince. He'll be at Indy too. And if you go up to him, I can hear Gonzo.
Can you not hear me?
Oh, now I can. Yeah.
Okay.
If you go up to him and say, those guys, those salty guys are a bunch of jerk-offs, they'll give you something for free, I think. I think Vince said he'll give you free
Ball
shit.
bags.
Yeah, those guys are ball bags. They'll
Hairy ball bags.
Free.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, you got one more to play?
I got one more, my friend. Let's
do it
from our own. Here we go.
Big Bob.
If you're looking for a gift for that special firefighter in your life, then head on over to GettinSaltyApparel.com. Yes, GettinSaltyApparel.com. What do we have? Well, we carry hand-drawn original t-shirts, glassware such as mugs, shot glasses, pint glasses, engraved Arctic cooler cups, and much, much more. There's also a full line of firefighter tool bottle openers like Halligan's, nozzles, and wine bottle opener accesses too. And if you're a cigar smoker, congratulations! We have partner sauce cigar cutters and humidors. Think we're done? Far from it. We got toiletry, gear bags, koozies, a full line of hats, decals, sweatshirts, and once again, so much more. We could also personalize most of these products, and if you want discounts, hey, you've come to the right place. We got discounts on large orders for promotion dinners, weddings, as well as installation dinners. Just head on over to GettinSaltyApparel.com.
So one last thing, I got the partner saw pizza cutter coming. Ruffy he's got his hands like this. He don't want to spend the cash. If you want to see the partner saw pizza cutter, I highly urge you.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to buy it. If you're going to buy it,
I highly urge you to text to email Lou and tell him we want the pizza cutter.
If you can email me on the pizza cutter.
All right, email him on the pizza cutter and tell him how much you want the partner saw pizza cutter. I'll have the prototype next show. So I'll show you. We'll play show and tell. Go ahead, Guns.
And lastly, but not least, certainly not least, please hit us up in the super chat. Guys, we had a lot of questions come through and whatnot. We can't get to them all. So if you really have that question you need to get answered, please hit us up in the super chat. That way we can take care of it. Or, like always, if you just want to go ahead and support us, this is one of the best ways to do it. And we greatly appreciate all the support.
Yeah, send me a couple of shekels so I could buy the prototype for the pizza cutter because Ruff's he's hard and stance against it. So help me out. If you want the pizza cutter, give us.
I've been okay in all your invoices the last 6-8 months. We're not even thinking. You got cards, you got poker chips, you got challenge coins.
Yeah,
let's slow down on the pizza cutter. All right, please.
Pizza cutter's coming to a theater to a pizza pie near you. All right, bring him in, Ruffy. I'm ready.
All right,
ready?
I am ready. Coming to the stage, Lieutenant George Kreuscher,
Woo!
Senior. I call him Senior, even though he's not a senior.
He's not a senior?
Because of the middle name. The middle name's not the same.
Oh, the middle name is different.
He made a
Welcome
point
to the
to tell me
show,
that.
Lieutenant Kreuscher. How are you?
Very good. And it's Kreuscher, not Krishna.
Oh, how dare you,
I
Louis.
said Kreuscher. You
They
said
love
Kreuscher.
in New York. They like putting an N in there, but no.
Kreuscher.
Yes.
All right, before we get all crazy with ourselves, we got to get patriotic before Susie loses her panties in there.
Oh, Susie. All right. Are we ready? Here we go.
Yes.
Stand by.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Amazing. Hoorah. And you know what? She's coming to Indy, Roof. I think what I might do is she'll get to the booth. I'll be totally shit-faced by about noon. I'll get American flag
Allegedly.
and a
Run naked
2x4
through the
like
hall?
Hacksaw Jim Duggan, right? And walk. Oh! Have us sing it live and get shit-faced. What do you think?
Outstanding.
All right. And Warren Jenkins, one more thing. I was privileged to get a copy or see some of Dan Potter's book. When I say it might be one of the best books you've ever seen,
It ain't better than this book.
it ain't better than that book, but it's up there next to that book. It's coming out real
It ain't
soon.
better
It's
than
come
that
to
book,
print.
baby.
Show that again, Ruffy. I think that guy might have seen some fire there.
I don't know.
I don't know. You think that guy saw some fire?
I don't think he did.
Nah, I think he might have.
That was the first thing he said when he told me where he was from, what companies he was in.
What?
Look at him.
What?
Look at him chuckling.
You know. All right. Let's go back in time a little here, Lou. We'll go back to the days when Lieutenant Kreuscher was a young lad. Where did you grow up? Where are you from? How'd you get into the fire service?
Well, I grew up in Ridgewood. Actually, we have Bushwick, Ridgewood, and East New York come together, just about where the three sections came together. Eldon and Wilson. I was between 112 truck on Madison Street and 252.
Yeah.
Schaefer and Central. So that's where I grew up. Predominantly German area, mixed up Italian, some Russians. It was a great place to grow up. My friend's father was a fireman for 37 years. My best friend as a kid, he became a fireman. He spent his whole life in 238. But his father was in 257, did a lot of work in those days, in his time, a lot of details up in Brownsville. And his father was a pro baseball player. He didn't last, but he started out, he had a pro contract, not a contract, but he started out as a pro candidate. And he was a strongman, a known strongman in the fire department.
Is that right?
57, his father. And I heard his stories as a kid. And since I was around 9 years old, never thinking I would be a fireman. I had 2 Sunday school teachers that were firemen. One was my teacher, and he's a huge guy. He was a truckman. The other one was an engineman, Richard Buick. He's a wonderful guy. He looked like Richard Carlson, who played I Led Through the Lies. He's a very handsome guy, and he happened to be as nice a guy as he looked. And but still, never thinking I would be a fireman.
What year are we talking about here, Lou?
Then we're talking about probably the 50s.
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking about the 50s. And so I never really thought of being, well, I did after a while. I guess it was about just out of the Army. And I had a friend, another friend, his father was a fireman. He was going to take the test, and I was interested. It sounds like it would be good. And he came in one day. I tried to get an application from a firehouse down there, and of course, no one had them. He said, go over Thomas Street, which I didn't. And anyway, this friend of mine, Bill Holm, who spent his whole career up in 140 truck on Metropolitan Avenue.
You work with my father, Bill Holm.
You're kidding me.
No, Bill Holm worked with my father for 20-something years in 140.
Bill Holm was some guy. He's a cool guy. Yeah. Another strong man. and good at everything. Very good at everything. A Swede, but American, but a Swede. And but anyway, he came in one day to work. We worked at Sperry Gyroscope, and he says, fill this out. And I did. And then of course I took the test. I did very well on the test, on the written test, and I did the physical. In those days, we had the physical, the 8-foot wall, coming out of the 4-foot high tunnel, and the 8-foot wall. I had been I was a gymnast, a high bar man, rope climber,
Nice.
Right over it.
It was my meat. Yeah, it was really my meat. Actually, I hit the 8-foot wall with the wrong foot. And because I had such good, pound for pound upper body strength, I was able to muscle myself right over the wall. And it was gymnastics that saved me. But anyway, so that was it. And I had a wonderful career. I could have never imagined the life I would live in the fire department.
Isn't that crazy when you think about it?
Yeah. And the men in my life in that job were so extraordinary. Well, you know what? You could write a book about it.
As a matter of fact, I think somebody did.
But anyway, so that's how I got started, and I had an air conditioning job when I got out of high school with my friend Bill Zimmerman. He had a bunch of firemen. He was still in the job, and a couple of firemen that worked with him. They were putting in air conditioners in for this guy Phil Kreuscher, who I believe he was Jewish, a Jewish fireman, and he had an air conditioning business, and he was a sharp guy. And he hired these firemen, and I worked with them, and they were all giants. They were all from the truck. They were giants. They're big men. And that was one. And it was a summer. It got cold. I got laid off. It got cold, and the air conditioning business slowed up. But it was fun working with those guys.
So, how long was Proby school when you went back? You
would ask me that. I'm going to say 10 weeks.
10 weeks. And it wasn't at the Rock yet, right?
I'm guessing that. What's that?
It wasn't at the Rock yet, right? It was at
no, it was at Welfare Island.
Welfare Island.
Oh yeah. It may have been even 12 weeks, but I'm guessing about 10 weeks. Yeah.
Did they have the ladder school at 16 truck back then too? Was that where?
That's before me, but I think I caught I didn't catch that, but that was just before my time.
Right.
Yeah.
You get on. Where's my paper here? What year?
I have it here. Got on 1960. So when you were getting on the job, did you kind of have an idea where you wanted to go at this point, since you had some friends that were on the job, or what was the story? You had a hook?
Actually, I didn't know anything.
You knew that truck guys were big.
You did know that. Yes,
I did know that.
Big.
And of course, I'd like to go to a truck, but being 5'10", at that time about 150 pounds, no one was willing to take a chance on that. But I had somebody, a neighbor, who wanted to help me, and he was a neighbor who knew someone, and he said, "Where would you like to go?" Of course, I did say a truck. I knew enough about the fire department, not a lot, but I thought I would like to be a truckman. And he says, "Well," he says, he says, and besides that, I was a 5'10", 150-pound skinny guy. And he said, he says, maybe have any engines in mind. And I did. And it escapes me at the moment how I got it, but I had, someone must have told me. I said, maybe like 230 engine. And, when you're in Proby school, everybody says, I'm going here, I'm going there. And
that was the place. 230 engine was the place.
It was a
talk
great
about
place.
that on this show. A lot of people talk about that place.
A lot of World War II veterans. A lot of World War II veterans. One was a Marine, World War II, Bill Reed, the most charming guy, silver-tongued guy you'd ever want to see. And his buddy, Dom Charaval, was an interrogator's interpreter at the end of the war, spoke in World War II, spoke 4 languages.
Wow.
And often like to beat his gums around the firehouse with the different languages, but silver-tongued guys. And somebody, the captain, Blundell, was a flight engineer on B-17s. And my father's brother was on B-17s. And he was a flight engineer, which means he's the top gunner. He was the top gunner. And he also was very tall. He's about 6'1" or 2. And he was a great captain to break in with. And he eventually became a deputy chief. And but he was a wonderful first captain. The officers there, John Wakey, Ed Whalen, they were 102 guys. But they came from 102.
Never heard of it.
Yes. And they were wonderful. Eddie Whalen was a basketball player for LIU. He played at the time when they had
remembers everything.
Big, the big where they arrested all the guys. The only guy that didn't go to jail, Eddie Whalen. And in fact, they kidded him being Zip Whalen. They wouldn't feed him the ball, of course, because he wasn't in on the thing, right?
Feed him the ball.
A real Christian, Irish Christian guy, and handsome, like a fireman poster. And his buddy was John Wakey, who I did much of my fire duty with John Wakey. They both came out in 102. They studied together, and Wakey. Eventually, of course, he became the captain of 108 and later on the battalion chief. Wow. But he was, I talk about Wakey so much that my son George, our oldest son, when he was a little kid, he just thought it was Wakey's firehouse. He was a very impressive guy. He was a real good ball player and always a truckman. He was as an engine officer. He was always.
You could tell, yeah.
As an engine officer, he was teaching me to be a truckman. He'd always leave me. He'd go, Kreuscher, whip. He'd call me whip. I'm going to see what's underneath us here, stuff like that. He'd leave the line for a little bit to check it out. He wasn't running away, believe me. Very, very tough man. They were. So the whole place, there were so many wonderful guys there. The banter in the morning in that company 230 is about as good a place a guy could ever break into the fire department and learn what it is to be a member of the fire company. Jim McCausey, who was the driver, he probably came in at the end of World War II. He was Captain Blundell's driver, and he was a pure gentleman. And he was such a pure gentleman, but he came from Rockaway and Fulton. He knew killers. But he was a gentleman. And
he had a facade.
But he has a wonderful, smooth guy. And he taught me how to be a gentleman in the firehouse.
So all those guys had to have at least close to 20 years, right? After all those World War II vets. So
yeah, in '64, well, the captain, all of them,
yeah, tough as nails.
Exactly
and
right.
World War II vets.
You know what? They knew their duty.
Yeah.
Those guys. I of course listen today. Even the young guys. I taught 600 to 1,000 probies. Those kids, they were great. They all wanted to do it. So that never the beat goes on.
Right.
But those World War II veterans.
Oh boy.
Yeah. They're with me always.
Cool under pressure too, right?
What are they going to see that they haven't seen before, bro?
Well, I know. What are you going to show? What are they going to see?
Oh yeah, I got to go.
Well, I'll tell you that is true. But when you go there, and you're a new guy and you don't know anything, and they tell you, look, remember, you didn't start the fire. So don't get excited.
How long did it take you to catch your first job, Lou? How long did it take? Do you remember?
About a week or two. And it was a church fire, multiple alarms. I came into work 6 o'clock at night, or before 6, 5:30, 5 o'clock.
Right.
And the captain's standing across the street, and he says to me, "Are you ready?" And we went to the scene. It was already underway.
Oh, I got you. All right.
No, but I remember the first runs where it looked like a thing, and I saw all these guys that were really cool get somewhat excited.
Right.
And they told me not to get excited.
You're doing it wrong, kid.
Yeah, but they were doing it wrong. And 230 was a great company. I heard discussions with, in fact, I heard Hank Millay talking about it. And Hank was, by the way, a very good friend of Rescue One, and he was a wonderful guy. But anyway, 230 was a 2.5-inch company. And I liked it. And because you know why? I'm afraid of fire.
Me too.
And I like water. Even when they were talking about the fog and all that stuff, I'm telling you the truth. When I didn't know as much as a lot of guys that were saying it, but I didn't believe it. I like 1.5-inch line and a solid stream, and we weren't afraid of anything with that thing. There was never a fire too big for it.
Are you sure?
Apartments in that,
How about that one?
How about that one? I was going to say, that's your 230 picture right there. Is that you?
That's me. Yes, that is me.
That.
Yeah. That's a Donchin picture. That's an Al Donchin picture.
Yeah, just a little fire here.
That's a great picture,
a lot of
man.
fire.
I got to use
That's
that
Owen
tomorrow.
Street. That's a vacant by itself. 34th Battalion, 230 did 2,200 runs my first year there, when 290 was probably doing twice that. But occupied structural fire, the 34th Battalion was the heaviest battalion in the city. So we had a lot of fire, and most of it
And
was
occupied. Yeah.
But that block Ellery, the original firehouse was on Ellery Street, where Marcy Housing is now. When they built Marcy Housing, they of course tore the old firehouse down.
Is that mostly row frames there, Lou?
Yeah, actually, yes. A lot of attached frames, right? Like 3-family houses,
That's the firehouse on Park Avenue now, right? It's a little
yes,
single house.
1949 firehouse. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of guys have come on the show. Again, you hear 231, you hear 290, you hear it back in the day, but 230,
great little spot.
A lot of guys, 227, 230, all those single houses around there, 217.
Yes, 217, right. 209, well, of course, 209 was on Taffy Place before being with 102. 209 was single. 216.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were all single. Because when I went to 102, I worked in the old house, the old 102 house on the other side of Myrtle Avenue, on the Bed-Stuy side of Myrtle Avenue. And it was about 1865.
Wow.
And I worked in that house as a detail from 230. But when I went to 102, they were on the other side of the street with the double house, and it was 209. And they took them off from Taffy Place, and put with 102.
Was 102 the first? Who did you run in with mostly? What trucks? 102?
Most
111?
102, 108. I would say 102, 1, 108, 2, 111, 3. More or less. Right. And in some ways, it was almost actually equidistant, really. We were closest to 102. Actually, years ago, when they were both single houses, 102 and 230 played together.
Right. So you knew all those guys very well, then, obviously.
I knew a lot of them. Oh yeah. I knew a lot of the guys from the single house when I was in 230. Going back then with Jerry Lambert, Korean infantryman, Old City basketball, Connie Metzger, a tank driver, 4th generation fireman.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
4th generation fireman. His father was the permanent tillman in 147 truck, and he helped write one of the big truck lectures, but he didn't get the credit for it because he was a fireman. And the other one is Charlie Stressler, Chief Stressler's son, Special Forces.
Wow.
So they were some guy, and of course the company was loaded with Marines. My oldest son was a Marine, so I can handle them.
You're an Army guy. Come on.
I'll tell you this. You know what?
There he is. Look at this.
Holy mackerel.
There's the Army guy.
Yeah. Actually, I went in the Army to go airborne. That's why I went in the Army, and I got short circuited. I was going to a good school, and there was a black sergeant like I was a squad leader. And the black sergeant, he like took a liking to me. He was interested in me, and so he was airborne, you know. So he says, and he calls me Whitey. You can see the picture. He said, Whitey, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the Army Security Agency School. He goes, that's a great school. I said, yeah. I said, I went to go airborne. I said, he says, and he was a paratrooper. He'd been airborne. So he says, no, he says, don't do that now. He says, go to that school. It's a great school. I did. It was great. And actually it changed my life. But yeah.
When you got to
I would have gone airborne. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have the 4 kids I have or the 10 kids I have. So
things happen.
You never know how these things happen.
Yeah, how things work. Yeah,
one guy, somebody in your life.
I did try twice. After that, I tried twice. Reported to the company commander to go. And he had been airborne. And he says, I can't do anything for you. Our orders at that time, Army Security Agency from Arlington Hall, Virginia. We were uniformed. We weren't spooks. But they were cut from Arlington Hall, Virginia, no longer Department of the Army. And he said, I can't do anything for you. And I tried to even switch allocations with a guy going to Bragg. I was originally going to Harrogate, England, trying to switch with him. And it didn't work. So I never jumped out of an airplane. And I love it.
All right, don't tell nobody. We won't tell anybody.
Yeah. So when you got to 230, was that really what was it, 64? It really wasn't the quote unquote war years yet, right?
Yes, it was.
Were you catching that work?
Before me was Lindsay Park. That's over where 108 is.
Right.
That'd be like off of what is it? Union Avenue, over toward like where Siegel Street is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where they were.
True.
When they were building the Lindsay apartments, or they were breaking ground for them or whatever. That was really hot over there. And that was a lot of fires. So you could say it started around 59.
Really, that early?
Yeah, I would say Al Donchin always called the great photographer, always called the war years 59 to 79. And that's probably right. And probably the middle of it, 64 was the middle. That was the Bronx, Brownsville. But as a matter of fact, I did a building inspection for 103 and 290 in that district at a Proby school.
Somebody had to do it.
I
couldn't get that out quick enough, bro.
All the people in the neighborhood were all Jewish people, and the neighborhood was.
Wasn't it like an Italian neighborhood too? Fortunoff was in that neighborhood.
Yeah, that's true. But on the block there, it looked It was mostly Jewish people, but just very nice people, and the neighborhood looked good. You know what I mean? But even then, they were going. You know,
Yeah, right. You
like
could tell it was happening.
I saw the runs of workers up on the wall, and I knew I was going to a busy place, but in fact I didn't believe it. I said that can't be right, but it was. You know, it was just about 290 was doing about twice the running 230 did, and we were 22 230, 22 in the city, and with about 2,200 runs a year, but heavy fire.
That's a good run to work ratio.
Yeah,
Lou,
yes,
you sent me the runs for each, because in the book you talk about how, right. So I have 64. I'm just going to go quick just so you could see how it's ramping up. Koob. In 64 was 2,360. 65 in 1965 was 2,776. In 1966 it was 3,215. 67 was 3,765. In 68 it was 4,400. In 69 it was 4,930. 70 was 4,500. 72 was 5,900. So it just kept ramping up and up and up and up. Like
no, 102, 111, and 108 were all about 500 runs from each other. And the ones that had the least runs, they didn't talk to the other guys. But the difference is about 500 runs between all of them, you know. And those years, when I went to 102, it was upwards. It's down on the paper there, but probably 5,000 to 6,000 runs, you know. And it was so we had a second alarm pool in 102. This is now 69 to 74. We had a second alarm pool. Charlie Stressler, who's a German, who ran the pool, and he was real strict about the pool, right?
I love those guys.
We hit it so much that the last payment was 65 cents. God is my witness.
Wow.
So we changed it. Well, Charlie changed it to a third alarm pool.
Yeah, right. Build up.
That was how much the amount of fire. 230. I ate a lot of smoke, and those like I said, those engine officers were very aggressive. Blundell, the captain, was a one-line man. Go right in, and you just went to the seat of that fire. Period. And of course, you get your head handed to you doing it, and of course, most times, first we're not wearing masks.
I was going to ask you that.
And, you know, anyway, you took a beating. But when I got to 102, that was about the height of it. And I was watching guys with 12, 13 years in the job in 102 melting before my eyes. And by the time I finished there, I had 10 years in Bed-Stuy. And,
wow,
and I was like,
wow, that's you?
That's me.
You're 102, right?
Yes, that's 102.
Okay.
Yes.
Look at that goatee he's got on there.
Yeah, we went through it.
Look at the chops, Coop. Yeah. I'm posting that one up tomorrow too.
A little while had it. We were all doing it.
Had the Huckapoo shirt working?
Yeah.
Big collar, you know, going out to the club.
Bell bottom.
Married man, kids.
Oh, all right. Homework, church, and home, Lou.
Before we get to 102, give us a busy. Any nights come to mind where you like multiple jobs in one night? Like, do you remember anyone specifically?
Well, I'll tell you.
Maybe that one. I don't know.
Well, I was in 230 at that time.
Oh, my bad. I thought that was
that's right down the block. That's really actually a block and a half from 102. It's Bedford and Flushing. That's what it is. And that was a particularly good job, that one. But we had nights. Listen, we had nights that were really quiet.
Can't say
but
that.
we had nights where we got our bird beat out. And what like I can't think offhand of a night that not too many good ones, but I can remember a lot where we had multiple fires. That area we had a lot of fire duty, you know, and occupied fires. I'm trying to think. I mean, I had some exciting things in 102. Like I mentioned it. It's also in the book, the 11th floor rescue, and they estimated that may have been the highest aerial rescue ever made.
What was that?
The way it was done was that Jerry Lambert was the chauffeur, very aggressive guy. By the way, the truckman that was where it was happening, that's where he was. As a truckman, never mind the chauffeur, but as a chauffeur, the same way. When we pulled in onto Lafayette, it was in a Lafayette housing. And the fire, we could see the fire on the 11th floor. I was the OV. I was sitting between him and the chauffeur. And to get in there, he just headed right up the walkway, and all the steel stanchions, he knocked them all off with the bumper. We went bang, 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 bang. And he pulled that ladder right up to the building, right up next to the building. And if he hadn't have done that, he could have never got the ladder. The ladder was almost straight up.
So there's no angle. I was going to say there's no angle.
It's about an angle, but very, very slight. Yeah. And at that job, because it was the inside crew, I helped them set up the ladder. And then, of course, I proceeded up the ladder. And when I got up there, I'm trying to think, there was somebody with a kid. And then I think Jerry Lambert went to take the kid from her. And there was another one coming down, a 16-year-old, which we never do. It was so desperate up there that I didn't even stop to help her. I just told her, "You're all right." I met her about a third up the ladder. And I said, and of course, they had to be scared. The ladder was almost straight up and down.
Yeah.
And I said to her, "You'll be all right." And I went by her to get up there.
And
when I got up there, I wanted to get
down the ladder?
100-footer.
She went down the ladder by herself.
And I didn't even stop to help her. All right? Because I was desperate to get there. So when I got to the ladder, Tommy Carefree comes in from inside, and he comes to the ladder. And I'm looking at the room and back of the room light up. Yeah, I see orange in the smoke. It's heavy, very heavy smoke. And he's a big guy. He's an angular guy, also a Vietnam vet. And he's an angular guy. And I'm trying to get him to go. The ladder is just above the sill. I like maybe 2 rungs above the sill, not even. And I'm trying to get him to get through between the rungs to get onto the ladder. And I've got him by the shoulders. This is in the book. And his eyes are like silver dollars. And he really can't quite fit. And I got him by his shoulders. And I'm looking, I see this orange in back of him.
Wow.
And I said, this guy's going to die in my hands because I can't get him through the ladder, the lungs of the ladder. The smoke lifts a little bit, and it's a big orange globe.
What was it? The light, or was it just a
lava
light or something?
Lava lamp.
The big orange light bulbs, like where the fireboxes used to be. They had the big orange.
Yeah, dude, you were like, dude, you almost bought it right there. You have no idea for that.
Let me tell you, he wasn't a nervous type guy, but he was. He knew he could see I was worried, and yeah. And it all turned out to be nothing. Yeah, wonderful.
Wow.
But it was still the guys inside were getting their brains beat out because it was a fireproof and very, very heavy smoke condition.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So what we didn't get. Let's. I wanted to hear that story because you had mentioned it, but let's just go back to when did you decide that you were going to transfer, and what was the process when you went to 102? Who did you talk to? Did you? How did that work?
Okay, well, what happened is we saw each other every night, right? They in Brownsville, they don't know that. You know, the trucks and the engines, they never see each other. I'm kidding. Well, anyway,
You had us for a second.
well, we saw each other every night. So I saw them, I really had in my head, I wanted to be a truckman. What I thought about, which it never disappointed, was a truckman. You were on your own often, and you had to think of a lot of things. I don't know, or I don't always like to think of a lot of things, but in that job I did. And I would say, so it was in my head to kind of eventually go that way. And what happened was, I was going to go to 26 truck. I was going to move upstate New York, and I was going to go to 26 truck. And one of the guys from 102, one of the senior guys, says, "You're not going to 26 truck. You're going to 102." And the captain, Joe Ippolito, sent a guy over to get my transfer. And they transferred. It was like sort of like I guess a hometown favorite. And they
that's
put
great.
me in there, and of course it was a wonderful company, senior guys. And our youngest son is still in 102 truck, and in his time it became the oldest truck in the job. 102.
I
know that for
sure.
sure.
Senior
Right?
job, yeah.
Yeah, very, a lot of guys over 20 years, and senior men. And when I went there to senior men at that time, probably 15 to 20 years, and there were probably a couple Tom McNamara, one of the chauffeurs over 20, and a lot of senior guys, a lot of Marines, by the way, a lot of Marines. Tom Cotter, he was. He looked like an altar boy, but he had been a Marine Raider. And he looked like an altar boy. He was the nicest guy. He became chief. And he imported a lot of Marines. So it was a lot of Marines, few of us Army guys, and maybe a few Navy guys. But a lot of
Navy guys were last.
I don't know about that, but heavy with the Marines, though, really. And that Tom Cotter was that influence there. So there were a lot of them in that company, and the best thing about it, it was not a chest beating company. It was not a company that, and to this day, it's not a chest beating company, and it's like wherever we go, that's what we've become.
No doubt.
Right. And that's a real good influence. So I kind of always wanted to be. I know Tommy Williams, who got killed in the job. Tommy Williams was a friend of mine from Sperry. He's a mutual friend of Bill Holm and me. And he was a truckman. And the way he'd talk about it, he kind of romanticized it. But actually, you really don't romanticize it. There's something romantic about it. And he, so he kind of helped plant the seed in my head too. And of course, Bill Holm was a big guy. He went right to a truck because he was a big man, He was not so much a power lifter, but he did do some of that. He did a lot of weightlifting, Bill,
So when you went there, they were by themselves at that time?
No, it was they had just gone into the new house a short time before. I'd say a year before. Maybe 2 years before. It was 209, and I had worked in 209 in the old house on Taffy Place. I had worked there a couple of times on details, and that a very, very a good marriage.
Yeah, it was seamless when they moved them together, because sometimes there's a little bit of
no, it was very, very good. Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. Usually trucks the truckmen are big men, the engine men are smaller men. There are no small men, but smaller men, and often the trucks being big men, they're very dominant characters, right? And it very. 209 had a group of guys. There wasn't one. I don't think anyone was tall as me. I'm no giant, but they were like maybe 5'8" or 5'9". And Joe Rashuter, another guy from the truck, a great truckman, by the way. He called them the Dalton Gang, and they were kind of on the wild side. They were intimidated by anybody. And one of them was my very good friend, Jackie Boyle, who had been a fighter. And,
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and that's the one time the engine was not intimidated by the truck. And 102 didn't play that game anyway.
Right.
Really. But you could see just by the size, big hulky men can be dominant just by their presence, you know.
Right.
But 102, there wasn't much of that. Really, in fact, it wasn't anything like that.
Who was the captain of the truck then when you went there?
Joe Ippolito, he's the one.
You said that, right?
Yeah,
Right.
And he was a guy, smoke a pipe in the front seat. Yeah, he smoked a pipe in the front seat. And he was the kind of guy that would smoke a pipe. And I don't mean a lazy guy. He was a high energy, lean and mean guy, but a gentleman of the first order. And he was the kind of guy you did not want to disappoint him. You know what I mean? He just was that kind of guy. I'm not talking about kissing his behind or anything like that.
Yeah. We all have those guys.
You didn't want to disappoint.
You don't want to disappoint him.
Nobody, believe me, the toughest guys didn't want to disappoint him.
Yeah,
and he's the guy who brought me there. And wonderful. I wanted. Anyway.
So somebody asked in the chat if Jimmy Basil was there when you were there.
I was his can man, right? And in the book, I mentioned that was an experience. And Jimmy Basil, I believe, could have been a dangerous man. I'm saying that I knew him very well. He loved all of us. We had no problem with me, but I felt Jimmy could be a dangerous man, but he was a very nice man.
What do you mean dangerous by that? What do you mean?
I mean, he could be dangerous. When I say dangerous, he would be a physically threatening person.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. But he wasn't. He would do stuff. He did Tom Mix stuff. Like go off the banister of a brownstone into the parlor floor. and you hear him say something outlandish, and guys would go, only if I saw him in action.
Yeah, right.
And
that's funny.
But he liked. He had his heroes, the guys that he thought a lot of, that he would tout their abilities or whatever. You never heard him toot his own horn ever, and yet he was a very physical guy, and I had a lot of fires with him, and. Well, I had the can when I was with him. Later on, because I had other positions, but for a while, I was his can man, or the officer. But I was with him, and he was a charger, and he would do extraordinary things that other people might try and get really hurt, but he could do it.
Yeah, I got you.
Was he a World War II guy too?
No, he was in Korea.
Oh,
He was a Marine.
Marine.
Marine in Korea.
Yeah,
Yeah. In fact, he remembered the name of his sergeant in Korea. Yeah. Yeah.
So he was like a fearless type of guy too, right? Like no fear, fearless.
Well, actually in the book, I say for real. He would say, "Is something for real, or is it for real? For real?" I said he was
like that.
for real, fearless.
Yeah.
Was Chief Cross? He was in that firehouse as well, right back then.
That is my old buddy. We were very good friends.
Yeah.
He came. I knew him as a fireman in 105 when he had a full head of hair, light blonde hair. And he looked like an altar boy. And when I see Ed Harris by in a lot of movies, I'm seeing Dennis Cross. You look
Really?
at Harris,
Yeah.
it's Dennis
Yeah,
Cross. Not like him. And Dennis came to 102 as lieutenant. I was his irons man and sometimes fill-in chauffeur. I never had a spot, didn't stay long enough, but I once in a while drive him, and of course I was often his force of entry man, and I had quite a lot of fires with him, and we got to be very, very, very good friends, and we were friends really till he died. I hadn't seen him. I had been in California when 9/11 occurred. It's in the book. And I came back to his funeral. And as a matter of fact, at the wake, I'm in the back with my daughter and my son-in-law, my wife. In the back of the place is mobbed, like a fireman wake is. And the priest says, "Does anybody want to say anything?" I'm in the back of the room, and it's mobbed. I made a charge up to that lectern. And I saw Dennis was looking down on me and going, "Well, are you or aren't you?"
Do it.
He was another pure gentleman, another guy who probably didn't look as tough as he really was, and as smart as well. Brooklyn Tech guy, smart guy, very smart
guy.
Yeah, perfect balance. Perfect balance. He's up there when I gave the list.
Yeah.
He's up there right at the top of the list.
That's a good a perfect balance, because I know exactly what you mean when you say something like that. It's
just he had everything. He had everything. He was a gentleman of the first order. Definitely didn't get flapped at all. Him and I, we had a job one time. I'm the irons man. I forced it, and he was notorious for this. You'd force the door, and he'd get in there.
Before you.
And it was so, he'd get in there right away. He was notorious for doing this. And he went into this place that was so freaking bad that I couldn't make it. I just forced the door. And he went in there. Where the hell did he go? So I don't want to just charge into something that I don't know where the hell he is or whatever. It's that bad. I mean, it's when we say down to the floor, it's the fire is next door. That door is open, and there's an engine going in there and having a hell of a time with the fire. And the fire department went right over the cockloft and into that apartment where we were. So the engine was having a hard time. I didn't know where he was, and I'm stuck at the door. Now you say, "Well, man, what?" I was in a chicken shit. It was just so freaking bad. It was just like a wall. And on top of it, I didn't know where he was. So the engine looks like they're going to like back out of where they are. I don't know where he is. I'm still at the door. And I yell at the engine. I go, "We have a guy in here, which I can't go for him. I don't know where he is." And they held fast where they were. So I'm like, I back down a little bit on the stairs. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And I guess I'm communicating with the engine, and they're finally making some headway. Who comes up the stairs but Dennis Cross? He's up the stairs behind me. They took us to the hospital. We were both green. He was green. I was green. We were green. And I wasn't where he was. So I said, "Jesus!" I said, I said, I couldn't get in there. I said, I didn't know where you went, So I did keep the engine or some influence, who knows? But I was letting them know there was a guy there, and I didn't know where he was. And what he did, he charged right through the apartment and out
the window.
Escape.
Oh.
Yeah, but if there was gates there, He may even cook.
Yeah.
You know, Lou.
And he didn't make. He was the person to make bad moves. You know what I mean? Very aggressive. But there was a case where he left me, and I didn't get in there fast enough. And by the time I wanted to get there, I really couldn't get in there.
Lou, that reminded me just with that whole story. I don't even think I've ever said this on the podcast. When we became the squad, I never really had an engine job on the nozzle, and we became a squad. And within a couple of months, I was backup, and we get a job across the highway from where we are. Vinny Ongaro was.
Corrado had the knob.
Corrado had the nozzle. Vinny Ongaro had was the boss, and we're going down the highway. It's on the other side, so we have to cross over, but you could see it's blowing out the windows. And it's reports a kid's trapped. So we get off the rig, and we stretch the line up the stairs real quick, dry, right? This is what I'm thinking about now. And Ongaro comes up the stairs, and the fire is about halfway down in the door. And we're waiting for water. And he goes in, puts his mask on, and he goes in. And in, like you just said, it's exactly what you said. Within 30 seconds, the fire is now down to the floor, right? Now, so much that we had I'm yelling into the room to him, like, hey, Lou, you know, and I'm like, holy shit, I don't even know what to do. Like you said, like, I'm like, give us water when you can, you know? And then finally the water came up, we put the fire out, and he had done the same exact thing. He had gone through the apartment as fast as he could, searched what he could, and went to the window. And, you know, he was, you know, out the window, but same exact thing that he did the same thing. But like you said, if there was gates or something on there, I always felt like, holy shit, in trouble because we didn't have water.
It would have been different. And like I say, how much fire got into that side, I don't know, because we wound up in the hospital. But the thing is, it was that bad that I never got into where he was, and I was green. And yeah, well,
I got assigned to the 5-7 actually as a lieutenant in 2002, and obviously he was there, and you know, he had just passed to 9/11, and you know, I learned a lot about him just from, you know, being assigned there and going up to the office to see the chiefs. Chief Travis was there. He was a 102 guy, right?
Terrific guys, yeah.
And so
my son knows all those guys. You know, he knows who they are.
Well, when I first covered that, I used to cover in 102. My first tour as lieutenant, I'll just do it real quick, was in 102. And Captain Murphy, my captain in 288, I've said this story a number of times. He's like, when you get there, go upstairs, you know, when you relieve the boss, and, you know, like everybody says, check who you guys are, see how much time they got. So here I am with my 10 years on the job, and there's, you know, Richie Kreuscher, you know, 20-something, it's Sardi, 20-something, Ray Pollard, you know, 20-something. I'm like, I'm going to stay in the freaking office here. I'm not even going
my mouth shut.
But I tell you right now, it was one of my, I used to love, I did vacations there a few times before I got assigned to 290. I loved working there all the time.
It was a great place. You know, you mentioned Ray Pollard.
Oh, God, what a guy.
He was my son's hero.
He was, I seen one of the best grabs I ever saw was Ray Pollard.
Yeah. I met him at his son's wake, you know. And
what a shame.
And I was with Leaf's brother, the other guy, we were together. We were at the coffin there. And I had never met Ray Pollard, but I knew who he was from Leaf. And I'm at the coffin, you know, saying a little prayer. And the two of us. And I look over at Ray Pollard. And I knew what I was looking for, because what Leaf says, he's Sam Elliott.
He is Sam Elliott. He is Sam Elliott. He is Sam Elliott. You talk about a man's man, right? A man's man. Holy man.
He's a man's man. So, but I didn't know him. But my son that's in 102 is not an easily impressed guy, right? He's a tough guy. All our sons were wrestlers. They're all wrestlers, so they're all tough guys. But Ray was his hero. And because he does everything right. He's a truck driver, so he's a great chauffeur, and could do stuff with the truck, you know, which is very common. 102 chauffeurs in my time were absolutely creative. So I think that just goes on and on. But anyway, Ray. So I look over and I see him, and I know who that is. He's the father, right? And he looks right over at me, just like Siri would say. He says, "I know who you are."
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when I got up to him, I'm a man of many words. I had no words.
No words.
I had no words. I said, Ray, that's exactly. I said, Ray, I have no words. But he knew. I hugged him. We hugged each other. And then I told his wife, your husband is my son's hero. And,
your son's a fireman there? Or officer?
Yes,
I remember Lee.
Yeah.
I remember him.
Is he there now?
26 years, yeah.
26 years.
Yeah, but I remember him from when I worked there. Because I remember his name.
St. Louis, yeah, Leaf, yeah. When he went there, he was a kid, and now he's one of the senior men, one of the couple of.
There was a lot of senior guys.
A lot of senior guys here.
Even at that time, there was still a lot of senior guys.
A lot of 230 guys, after me.
Right.
A lot of 230 guys.
Two Richies, Croce and Richie Raz.
Razowitz, right?
Razowitz.
Yeah, they were from 230.
Your other son's on the job too, or just
yes, George. He's from. He was a '93 engine. He's the one that got burned in '93 up on Audubon Avenue.
The Molotov cocktail.
Yes, responding to a gas leak. Yes, and he
some other truck, 44 truck or something.
He was with 45 at that time. Well, but you know what? He when he came back, he was out a year with the burns. How that works? George wanted to be a fireman before he was a Marine. Okay. Since he was a young guy, he wanted to be a fireman. Actually, since he was a little kid. Really, he had a fire truck as a little kid. Always wanted to be a fireman. And probably would never left the job, right? And so what happened was when he got burned, of course, because he loved that job so much that he fought to come back. Now, Tommy Brannigan was the same ball of fire. They were both burned from their waist up, both of them. And Tom mixed out of the rig. George hit his head, was rendered unconscious, the back of his head open. And Tommy crawled to George. It was the engine by himself. The truck was coming in behind him, but they weren't there yet. They hadn't turned the corner yet, off of Waterbond. And in the newsreels, it looks like there's a pile of trash in the street. It's them. And Tommy Brannigan says to me in the hospital, he says, George was unconscious because he got knocked out when they it's really George's story, but that night we went up to New York hospital. They were in the burn center. They were still in the emergency room. They weren't even cleaned off yet. And we got in there. I asked George. George had been a Marine, so I knew he was cool. He could handle himself. And I said, George, how long did it take you to get out? A second. He goes, like maybe two. By the way, he's holding his hands up. The serum, all the serum is coming off his fingertips, and he's holding stuff up. He's all dirty and burned. Yeah, mostly, thank God, second
2
degree.
seconds, right? 2
Mostly
seconds.
second degree, yeah. Arms, head, neck. So I said, how long did it take? He said, maybe 2. So what happened is, all the rigs are the same. Tommy came, he was a guest. They were friends from Proby School. Tommy Brannigan was from 67 Engine, right? They have the same rig, but you have the same rig, all the handles don't work the same. So he had Tommy riding forward, just in the bucket seat as a courtesy to his buddy. And when Tommy went to get the door, they could see below their waist everything's fire, and he could see Tommy was fumbling with the door handle because they don't work the same. So George got he knew, and he got it, and they Tom mixed out, and George landed on the back of his head, and was rendered unconscious. I couldn't tell the story without choking, and I better not choke now.
It's all right.
Tommy Brannigan says he crawled to George, and he said, "If we were going to die, we're going to die together." That's so freaking story. And with that, 45 truck came in, these big freaking bruises. George was training for the fights. He also boxed. He's a wrestler, but he trained boxing. And he trained with Patty Barr, who was a light heavyweight champion in the Marine Corps. And he was training with George. He was on the rig, a lot of big bruises, and they scooped them up. And they took them first. They took them to Presbyterian, and then they took them. They couldn't really handle it there. They take them on down to the burn, which they did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a tough time. So for George was out. It took him a year, and he wanted a change of scenery because 45 truck is a wonderful truck, but a 44 might be a little busier. Boss Avenue. So he wanted to go to 44 truck. He had that in his head to go there, and he did go there, and he worked for almost another 5 years there. But because he was a guitar player, can't play the guitar anymore because his hands were damaged. And by the way, he's a great singer. By the way, it's a classical
Really?
singer. Oh yeah, classical. He does a lot for the Holy Name in that. He does a lot of
Nice.
national anthem for them.
Got
But
good
anyway-
genes here, Ruffy. He's putting out some quality kids, bro.
Yeah. Right.
Actually, you know what saves the kids? The mothers.
Oh, good for you.
Is she standing over you right now with a pin, like a rolling pin?
Rolling
No. No, but she, you know what? I could take my wife like nothing. I could take her right down.
Yeah.
Psychologically.
Where is she?
Yeah, I know my place. But anyway,
Let me ask you this:
if he hadn't been burned, not a day would go by that somebody wouldn't say, "Well, how's your son?" I mean, for years.
Yeah,
And the irony is, if he hadn't have been burned, I'm not going to go into the detail here. If he hadn't have been burned, there'd be a 50-50 chance he'd be dead today.
because he was a 9/11.
Yeah. So how things work, he's still around, and he's our financial advisor.
Good man. I'd like talking to him.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else that you wanted to mention in 102 before we start moving on to Rescue 1? What are you thinking?
Yeah, 102.
Come on, let's do it.
Oh, God. Well, okay. I mentioned the chauffeurs, right? My compadre in 102 was Bobby Babstock. He finished up as the captain 20. He was he wanted to leave. He wanted to leave 102. And I had my paper in for Rescue 1. And I tried to talk him into put your paper in for Rescue 1. And he wound up putting it in for Rescue 4. He liked a double house, Rescue 1 single. And he liked a double house. He liked cards. So anyway, he liked a double house. And he went to Rescue 4. And then from there, he became a lieutenant in Rescue 2. And then later on, actually, when Captain Kohler died from carbon monoxide years ago, they went into the vault and the guys fell, and they took the last guy to fall is the first guy out, and the first guy to fall is the last guy out, and of course Captain Kohler died. When I heard the captain of Rescue 4, Bobby was actually covering spots in Rescue 4, but he wasn't there that night. It was Captain Kohler. Yeah. And then, of course, eventually he was he had a chance, I guess, at 120 or whatever, and he was also a wonderful truckman. We saw eye to eye. He was, I'd say, a little bit more muscular than me, but we saw eye to eye. And in the book, many adventures together.
Is he still alive?
And we're very good friends.
Is he still around?
Oh yeah, he's in Florida now too.
Might have to get that guy on
West Coast now. Yeah, terrific, terrific. In the book, I think of Paul Newman playing Butch Cassidy could be Bobby Badstock.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. There's the word of the day, Paul Newman.
Yeah, this is all over the top. Bobby said, "Well, I was Sundance." That's not true. Yeah. It's played by Paul Newman, and but a very colorful. My father's one brother was a fighter, had 150 fights, had turned pro, got rained out, and that was the end of his career. But he had 150 fights, never lost a fight. And Babstock always reminded me of my uncle, and we're friends to this day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
another one or two guys. I'm the squad 3. When the squad was coming to rescue 230 from. I worked in the squad. I worked in 235 as a detail, as the Johnny from 230. We had to fill their manpower. So I spent the first month detail at 235, which was a good experience, actually. And I worked with Nick Papalizio, who later on became the captain of Rescue 4. And he was a young lieutenant. So I worked over there, and I knew the squad. I knew the squad was wild. And you asked me before my first fire in 230. And my first fire was a church fire. And I saw the squad squirting water on the trucks and stuff. They were so wild. They were just a wild company. And they were dark. Some of them had, big mustaches. They looked like Mexican bandits, some of them. I love it. But when they were going to leave 235 and come and live with 230, and somebody said it was digging wolves among the virgins. The squad with 230, but it didn't happen like that. It actually was a very good marriage. It worked out really good. But they were wild. They did 10,000 runs while they were in that house. A year. And in there was Hank Zercher. He was a lieutenant there. And he was out in, what is it, the 58th? Is the 58th Battalion out?
5'8" Battalion? Canarsie.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was a 5'8". And he was the guy at the Constellation fire. There were a couple of decks down. A lot of medals given that day, right? And 102 got 50 guys out of that ship with the aerial. One was Connie Meska, Jim Coward, by the way, Colonel Ormkin, 1942. You look like an African chieftain, right? Coward. And he was one of the guys, and Connie Meska was another one. He was probably a chauffeur, I'm not sure, but anyway, Hank Zercher was with Dick Hamilton, who was a legend. Not a big man, Dick Hamilton. We saw eye to eye. Actually, I don't think he was as tall as I was. But he was a rigger. a real kind of guy that should be in a rescue. And Hank Zercher had the utmost respect for Dick Hamilton. And actually, when he talked about Dick Hamilton, it was like with reverence. That's how much he thought of him. So Dick Hamilton, being a driver like he was, and I knew him, I met him. He wouldn't know me if he fell over me, but I had met him. And the first thing out of his mouth was, he said to whoever I was with, "Is he learning anything?" That's the kind of guy he was. But I knew who he was. But Zercher I knew real well. We did long bike rides. We were going to swim from Breezy Point to Sandy Hook, New Jersey. We did 50-mile walks for drill. We rode bikes from Bay Shore to Montauk Point and back in a day, 160 miles. So we did a lot of stuff together. He was a Superman. We were both gymnasts, both high bar men. Only he outweighed me almost 100 pounds, 90 pounds.
That's crazy.
He's about 6 foot to 6'1". I always thought he was taller, but he was probably 6 foot, 6'1". And 245 pounds. When he's a fireman, he went from 108 truck as a truckman to Rescue 2 as a fireman. And then, and at that time in 1960 at the Constellation, he was with Dick Hamilton and went down into the ship. And they were 2 decks down, and I guess it was carbon mono, just smoke. Dick Hamilton was rendered unconscious. Yeah. Hank Zercher carried him up 2 decks. Wow. You know, only a guy like Zercher. One time I shook when he was a new lieutenant in the Missouri, I gave him, I have a good handshake. I'm a gymnast. My hands are pretty good. So I gave him a handshake, and I tried to muscle him a little bit. I knew I couldn't, but I gave him a little muscle. And he
tug.
Gave me a whoop, 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 like that, like a rag doll. Whoop, whoop. I went, whoa. And like I say, I have a good grip, but it's such a powerful, truly a Superman. I consider him. You had Paulie Schmidt on. There's a couple of guys, I call them Superman. Paulie Schmidt's another one. Paulie Schmidt, all his dimensions are all exaggerated. You know what I mean? And it's a nice looking man. Hey, his 2 daughters. His 2 daughters were young Ford models. You know what I mean? But he's a Superman. Zercher was a Superman.
Chief Norman, John Norman said the same thing, that he carried Hamilton up the vertical ladder on his shoulders. He's in the chat. I see him in the chat, Chief Norman.
What? I'm sorry.
He said the same thing you just said, that Zercher carried Hamilton up a vertical ladder. Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, 2 decks. And anyway, so we were very good friends because he's gone. I wanted my sons, the 2 firemen. By the way, we have a 3rd son who's a dairy in California. but
nice.
Firemen, I wanted the 2 firemen to meet Zercher.
So giddy.
And anyway, so they got to meet Hank when he was. I'd say about 86, 87 years old.
Oh,
maybe,
shit.
Maybe 88. There was a lot of Hank left. And
I love it.
And these guys, and especially the younger one, Leaf, but George Leaf, they were very impressed by Hank.
He still had a good handshake, Clue?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did.
Especially since they're restless.
I didn't test him this time.
All right.
But anyway, and of course, he since has died, and because I was there, and then one of the things in fact, when our sons, we met him, we went out to lunch, and I said to him, I said, remember, we used to walk on our hands on the apparatus floor, on either side of the apparatus, Squad 3's apparatus. We were on our hands. So I said, remember we used to do that? He goes, no. I go, what do you mean you don't remember that? He goes, what do you expect? He says, I had a stroke.
Stroked
I
out.
don't remember nothing.
And still after the stroke, let me tell you, he was still a man.
87 years old.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd say about 87 or something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, he died at 92. And I wanted
God
us
bless
to meet him, to meet somebody highly unusual. And by the way, and humble.
Good stuff.
Tremendous humility. And half the time he looked like he was falling asleep. You know how the cool guys really are?
That's like
You know,
Coobs.
Huh?
It's like Coobs.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping right now. You woke me up.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He always kind of sometimes looked like that, but he was sharp. He come from a family. His brother-in-law was Gene Fernan, who was the captain of 2 truck. He was about 6'5", I think 6'5". That whole family, they were big. Mike Banker was his nephew. Mike Banker 6'5".
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
He's a big
yeah.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, all big men. So I told his wife, Hank's wife, that he's 60. He was never 6 foot. She says, all her brothers, they're all giants, you know. But Hank was a big man. He was a very exceptional person. And his brother Tom, he was my lieutenant in 230. Tom Zercher. He's in that picture of going up. I'm handing the fire escape hook to Tom Zercher. He's waiting for me. And Tom, like Lee Majors, the movie actor, looked just like him. Looked just like Lee Majors. So he was the handsome one, and Hank was
a lot of handsome guys back then, huh, Lou?
They were, yeah. Some of them were, yeah. Actually, there were a lot of them, right?
No doubt.
It's amazing characters back then, bro. Can you imagine?
Great characters, yes. And his brother Tom was probably a ladies' man, probably really, really ladies' man. But I knew him when he was married. It was different, but I think he was a ladies' man. But where Hank, somebody was talking about Mike Daly's brother was a fighter. And he asked him one time, he said, about this guy and that guy. Well, I can take that guy. I can take this guy. These are all kind of heavyweights. I said, I can take that guy. I can take that guy. And he said, well, what about Henry Zercher? And Mike's brother said, that's different.
Nope.
And he was a good judge because that would be different. Yeah.
No doubt.
So anybody else from there? Okay. Jimmy Elson, 102 truck.
Oh, nice.
Jimmy Elson was an excellent truckman. That's the greatest compliment I can give a guy. When I say somebody is a truckman, I mean a real truckman. Jim Elson, I'll tell this story. We very rarely ran in with 113, right? Down that way.
Rats.
It's a fire on Dean Street. Dean and maybe Dean Bedford. I'm not sure. It was a school. So we're on the top floor, and I'm a can man. I have the inside hook, and I'm reaching for ceiling, heavy smoke condition because I can't get ceiling. It's 20 feet high. I can't reach it. And the senior man, Pete O'Day, who had the irons, he says to Al Heimbach, who was 20 years in 102 as a lieutenant.
Wow.
And German. Oh, another thing in 102, loaded with Germans. Loaded with Germans. They'd be crowds. A lot of crowds. crowds. So Pete O'Day says we had a new guy with us, came to 102 when I was 5 years in the job. I'm the new guy in 102, but I had the can. And the other new guy, but he just came in the job, is Steve DeRosa. Later got a James Gordon Bennett 102. So he's with Jimmy Elson. And now that school had a mansard roof with all these windows and the mansard roof, slated mansard roof.
Slate, yeah.
And so the senior guy says to Pete O'Day, says to who was a character in his own right, says to Al Heimbach, he says, Lou, he says, where's the kid? Meaning Steve DeRosa. He says, I don't know, he says, but he's with Elson. Actually, it's Elson. I call him Elson.
Elson. I know a lot of people do that.
Yeah, and he didn't correct me. So Elson. He said, so Al Heimbach says he says he's with Elson. And he says, I know he's someplace he's never been before.
That's where you got to go. You got to go with that guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, oh, there's so many guys.
We just got to be. Oh my God, look at that picture. Where is that?
Yeah, I always wanted to try to touch on it, Mr. If you mentioned some of these names.
All right. Well, on the right, I told Gons before. This is Hank Gonzalez. He spoke up for me to go to the rescue. He went to the younger guy than me. I was a gymnast with his brother in Boys High. We were both gymnasts. His brother, Hank Gonzalez, and he spoke up for me to go to the rescue. He went to the captain's office to put a word in for me. And that's Marty Kniff next to him. He became a captain. He actually became a captain. Later went to a Marine company. Great Rescue 1 man. He was Lieutenant Rescue 1. And he was a Navy diver. He was a hard hat diver. And you could see the shoulders on him. He had the shoulders and chest of a,
got a good
right?
chin.
Yeah,
right.
Actually, he was a handsome-looking guy. The guy. In fact, Bobby Babstock one time he used to play golf with Marty Kniff, and I said to Bobby Babstock's wife, I said, do you know Marty Kniff? She says he's gorgeous. So, but anyway, but he was a handsome guy and a Navy diver, like I say, and before we were divers, and he was another guy with all the stuff, of course, he had all the right stuff. He's still alive. He's in his 90s. He lives up in Lake Placid.
Wow, God bless
Yeah,
him.
God bless him. Right.
In fact, the papers.
In fact, we had our 50th anniversary up at the what's the name of the place? Whiteface Lodge up in Lake Placid. And we brought out the family from California and the 3 families here up to Lake Placid. Nice. Because they had thrown all kinds of parties for us.
Very nice.
So we took them up there. And we were up there. The concierge was a blonde, a beautiful blonde, a slight accent. Looked to me like a Swede, I thought she was gotta be a Swede.
The way you say that,
Swede. Yeah, it's sweet. So she says to me, my father-in-law is a fireman. I said, really? What's your father-in-law's name? She says, Martin Kniff.
No way.
So I go, your husband's a handsome guy. He says he is. I said, I know, because his father's a handsome guy. She says, oh, yeah. She says, if I would have saw him first. Anyway, it turns out she was Polish, and she was wonderful, by the way. She was wonderful. But she was Polish, but Poles, they all have Viking blood, right?
Yeah.
But you're looking sweet. But anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, so let's move over to Rescue 1.
Yes, sir.
So we're still 1974, for goodness sakes.
Yes.
So what makes you want to go to Rescue 1? Jackie Boyle?
Oh, no. Got that very, very wrong. Jackie Boyle's in Rescue 1 because I was in Rescue 1.
Oh!
Now, he's my buddy. I eulogize Jack, eulogize Jack, Actually, I eulogized him in a hospital while he was still alive. I didn't know it. And, but...
So tell us about how that comes about, Rescue 1.
We were very good buddies, good friends. So... also another fighter. He was a fighter, and
we don't make them like we used to. That's for sure.
Oh, you know what? I don't know, Lewis. I think the beat goes on. I think it goes on. I see the guys today. Yeah. Maybe you have some slipping that didn't years ago, but they're still there. And
I agree with that.
I dealt with a lot of probies, and I have to say most of them.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
Now they're not fighters or iron workers. Now they're like
yeah, right.
programmers.
They have degrees from Wharton.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We're talking about how you went over the why you went over to rescue.
Okay. First of all, my reason was I wanted to. I was a Brooklyn fireman, and I loved it. I loved it. Could have very easily stayed there. I almost pulled my pay to stay with Dennis Kreuscher. I almost did. I for the rescue. I actually to just stay working with him. It was such a pleasure because he was also a friend. But I didn't do that. You can't do that. You got to move on. So I did. So the reason I went there was I wanted to work in Manhattan, experience it. Never in my wildest dreams, when I took one of the tests, we were over at the shops there, and they had that big cutout of Rescue One. The guy standing there with all the rig, all the stuff they had.
Right, yeah, the weights and the Iron Man.
It was impressive, yeah, it was impressive, but never in my wildest dreams did I ever think of going there. Not at all. That didn't enter my head. But I said, I had one friend that was already over there. A couple of them, Hank Gonzalez went. And then, of course, Bill Besson was over there. So I wanted to go to Manhattan. And I said, something really different. If to be in a place like 102 Truck, I didn't think anything could replace that as a truck. I was wrong. That's not true. But as a young guy, I that's the way you think, And 102 was a wonderful place to be from. But they were wonderful men throughout the job. So. But anyway, and a lot of some companies more experienced than others, all that stuff. So I wanted to. I thought the rescue would be worth a shot. So the captain at the time was Bill Anderson. I went over to see him, and told him I'd like to go there. I'd like to be there, and then. In time, it took me about 6 months to get there. Today, it takes them years to get there. It took me 6 months, which was a long time. And meanwhile, Babstock put in for Rescue 4, and he was gone in a month.
Babstock.
And but anyway, so I did get there. And it was said, this wasn't true. It was said that I was the first guy from 102 to ever go to Rescue 1. And the mistake was I was the first fireman from Rescue 102 to go to Rescue 1. But the first guy that came from 102 was John O'Hagan. He was a lieutenant in 102 and became the captain of Rescue 1. And that was found out after I was told I was the first guy for 102. But anyway, so I went there, and then they started coming in. And Jackie came. Jackie came. He had about 5 years less in the time in the job than me. Right, he was a new guy in 209 when I went to 102. And then he went, so he was 5 years behind me and everything, but we did the same things, kind of in the same tribe, really. And he came there about 5 years. I'd say I went there in 74. I think it would be safe to say he went there in 79, 78, 79, something like that. And I spoke up for him. Captain called me in the office. Do you know this guy? This is well, do I know this guy? And of course I of course fully. He said, if you make a mistake, your word's no good. I said, Cap, I'm not making a mistake. And of course he came there, and we were sort of like the same thing as Babstock and I were. Him and I were like that too. We're kind of. We sort of eye to eye in most things, literally and figuratively. And Jackie, he was a Golden Glove fighter, and he knew how to fight. I boxed in the PAL. I was in the academy. I wanted to go to the Golden Gloves. I didn't, for various reasons. I didn't go, but I wanted to go to the Gloves. I didn't. But I boxed in the PAL. But I was not in the league with Patty Brown and Jackie Boyle. And Jackie was such a tenacious guy. He 10 bar. He 5'9", 150 to 160 pounds, and 10 bar on the west side. On 9th Avenue, right?
Yeah, tough over there, man.
He could do it. Yeah.
Hell's Kitchen.
He'd have a bouncer, but he'd be there to protect the bouncer. And he could. And I tell you this was from Chris Galliano, who's now gone, was a Squad 3 guy who also went to Rescue 1. Very smooth guy, volley on the island. Sharp guy. And he saw Jackie go to work on a guy who had it coming. And Chris Galliano was a wrist wrestler. He was like Paulie, not as powerful as Paulie Schmidt, but he was a good wrist wrestler. Strong guy. He was on St. John's track team. He was a sprinter. Mm-hmm. He said he had a sprinter with a big ass, right? the coach
held him back.
Quarter horse, right? But anyway, Chris says to me, he saw Jackie Boyle work this guy over. He said, George, now I never saw that side of him, right? It's like my father's brother was a fighter. He loved me. I loved him. I never saw the other side of him.
Right.
I never saw the other side of Jackie either. And he said, I never saw anything like it. Chris Garrett said it. And we were just about the same size. He was not intimidated by anybody. I don't care how big they were. It didn't matter. And yet, same thing. He was a gentleman.
Right.
He was an absolute gentleman. Absolutely. How we met, sticks his hand out and says, I'm Jack Boyle. That's it. 30 years. That was a 50-year friendship. But anyway, so and then after a while, then came Tommy Reichel. Then came Tommy Reichel. I'm forgetting a couple of names right now.
Who's the bosses there?
Dennis Horrigan. Dennis Horrigan came, and O'Flaherty was there. At first, it was Tom Ball. When Jackie came, Tom Ballman was the captain, and in there, anyway, Tom Baldwin, I said, he looked like Tom Malden.
Pete?
Carl Malden.
Big nose.
San Francisco Pete?
Yeah.
Carl Malden, old actor. You're probably too young. Carl Malden, he looked like Carl Malden. And he was a fireman there in Rescue 1, a lieutenant there. He was my lieutenant there. He'd work you to death.
What's the last name? Baldwin?
Baldwin, yes. His son, Paul Baldwin, was there.
Baldwin. We worked.
I know Paulie Baldwin.
Okay, yeah. Paul, right? That's his father.
That's what I was asking.
He has his brother Joe. I know Joe better than I know Paul. I met Paul, but Joe I knew well. And of course, his father, I worked with his father. Father would work you to death at a job. But you didn't want to let him down. And on top of it, it was like working with your favorite uncle. Now, that's not my original thought. It was really Bill Siegel was the one that came out with that. But that is true. It was like working with your favorite uncle. Wow. And one time we were doing a ballroom. We were doing a ballroom, right? In a overhauling, going down to the floor, it was picking a hump on the Lower East Side. And he gives 10,000 orders, which he did. By the way, none of them were bad orders, but 10,000. Just high energy, about 6'1" or 2, angular carpenter. High energy. So he meets me down in the street. And he goes, I gave too many rules up there, didn't I? I said, give them to us one at a time. He grabs me by the arm and he leans over my arm and he laughs. I didn't know this at his funeral. He came out that he was born in Ireland. It said everything about him. All the things that I thought of him, I was saintly, but I never heard him say a curse word.
Hmm.
Really?
I'd say yes, definitely a devout Catholic. No doubt about that. But when I found out, I had no idea because he had no brogue. He was raised in America, but he was born in Ireland. Once I knew that, it said everything about him. So when he came back as the captain, the captains are always different, right? The captains are the captains. So I like captains, but they're different. So they got more authority or whatever. So when he came back as a captain, I said, how's he going to be? How's he going to be now as a captain? I'm working a lot as a lieutenant. How's he going to be? So I'm filling out we did everything on a straight thing over there. You had one mutual card, one mutual as an applicant every 2 weeks, unless you had a second card. So fill it to meet in the mail. So he says to me, I want a mutual something. I said it's a problem, Cap. I applied whatever the last 2 weeks. He says, "Don't you have a second card?" Anyway, that's the way he was. He was no different as a captain. I didn't work with him as a father, but no different than when he's lieutenant.
He was consistent, like everybody wants, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And good at everything. Very good at everything. Yeah.
I have who else did I have? Jimmy Curran. You work with, yes?
Yeah, Jimmy. We also became very good friends. We were partners at the Rock in special projects. Our desks were opposite each other. I would, because he burn stuff. He'd have to be doing something. I would do his class for him, And believe me, when George was burned, he took very good care of us, right? But I was in it for that. Jimmy was 100% fire department. And when I first met him, he came from Rescue 4. I'm going to say this publicly. I didn't want to like him. Came from Rescue 4, and I didn't want to like him. I tell everybody, I couldn't help myself. I got to love him, and when he worked, I was in the captain's group, right? And by the way, all great captains. O'Flaherty was the last one, and it was one of them. Tell you a lot about him. Him and Dennis were friends since they were 6 years old. Dennis Kreuscher. And I was only in that mix because I was really friends with Dennis, and then I met Brian as a fireman, and eventually he was a lieutenant in 102, and then he came over to Rescue 1, and I was very glad to see him come there, and also a very heroic figure. But anyway, but when the captain's working, and our group too was straight. We were all straight shift guys. He liked guys around that weren't working mutuals all over the place or whatever. He liked to have the same guys with him all the time. And I happened to be in that group. After I got stuck in the captain's group early on, and I stayed there. But it was good for me. But anyway, but when Jimmy came in, he was there as a fireman. That's how we, But then when he came back as a lieutenant, there was always something going on with Jimmy. The burn center stuff, very heavy,
right.
heavy into that. He used to drive his chauffeur crazy, but
he always had a cover in Boston all the time.
But I loved it. But he would do this thing, and make his contracts and stuff for it was all fire department. All for the fire department. So we wind up eating in some interesting place, something like that. And he had balls. I mean, I know that's a dime a dozen in the fire department, but Jimmy, he really, he was so affable. It was disarming how aggressive he was as a fireman or a fire officer, very aggressive. And so, of course, I thought the world of him, and became a very good friend. And in fact, I knew how to take a ring off with a string, you know. And he had a daughter who was not a good patient, and she once bit a dentist. So he called me. She had a ring that couldn't be taken off her finger, and I became a hero because I got the ring off finger with the string. But anyway, but we were very good friends. And how can I put it? And of course, he ran all those shows over there, you know, for the buffs, you know, all the shows. He'd have a guest speaker. Like one of them was Ray Downey. I mean, of course, Ray Downey. So he has Ray Downey, but Ray Downey gets sick. He's in California, and he's got some stomach ailment or something, and he can't make it. So Jimmy says to me, Ray Downey can't make this thing. I got this thing booked. You know, what am I going to do? He says, do you think you could fill in for him? I mean, you have to be heavy-headed to fill in. I said, well, he said, no, I don't need his stories. I have my own stories. So I said, yeah, I said, I'll do that. And I mean, and I'm not doing this as braggadocio because honestly, I know where Ray Downey is. I know Ray Downey. His son Chuck was my probie.
Is that right?
Yeah. Chuck, and he's a deputy now, and of course Joe I knew a long time too through all the rescue stuff. But anyway, so I know who Ray Downey was, but I thought I could handle. I had done public speaking. I could get up there and do it, and I decided to talk about Rescue One, and of course Ray Downey, he couldn't talk about Rescue One. You know, you have to talk about Rescue 2 or something. So I said I'll talk about Rescue 1, and I'll how they started. One of the first big jobs was a submarine in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. You know, I guess the submarine was like quite a few years after they were formed in 1914. That was later on. I think it was 1918 or something like that. So they had a fire and that was their first big gig where they put that fire out in a submarine in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So I talked about that. And then there was the guy that on the picket fence. They burned the pickets, the section of the fence, burned it off. And then took the guy to oh God, down the village, the hospital in the village. I'm having a mental. This is right. This is a
the hospital. The hospital.
Yeah. I will believe it. It's closed now. Anyway, it's closed. The hospital's closed, but. It's all the village things. That's where they get the gerbil stories and all those stories. Nice. That's the hospital. So,
I know that one. No.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so
St. Vincent's.
St. Vincent's. Thank you very much.
That was Chief Norman. Thank you.
I was having.
Oh, there it is.
Did he chime that in?
He did.
Say hello to him.
You just did.
I just talked about him yet. But anyway. So he knows if I'm lying, by the way. He knows if I'm lying. So anyway, so I give a talk on. Come to think of it, John may have been there at that time, because for a short time there we were lieutenants in the program there, right? So he may have even been doing something there too. Come to think of it, but anyway. So I talked about that. I talked about them cutting the section fence off, and then of course when they got to St. Vincent's Hospital, the surgeons, they didn't have the kind of tools to get the pickets, 1 inch square pickets, to get them out of the guy, and he had one through his pelvis, actually through bone, and one was through the pelvis and different parts of the body in a line. And they called the rescue back there and had them scrub up and went in there and assisted in removing those. So I told that story. And then I demonstrated how you take a ring off.
With the string.
With a string.
Dental floss.
And then talk about a case we had, which I had. I was, we'll say, the operator. We had a job in St. Vincent's Hospital in room 108. A guy had his testicles and his penis through a 1 1/8 stainless steel.
Oh yeah, we had a couple of those.
Oh, I didn't
Ring?
have. Yes, yes. His penis was the size of I would say like a salami. And the testicles were the size of Nerf footballs.
Hey Lou, did you use the string method on that one?
Yeah.
No,
George, get the string. We got a large salami penis here.
Now where you couldn't use the string.
No.
But I happen to be the guy who knew how to use the string.
George, get the Kermantle rope. We got a large salami.
All right. But it was, here's the thing. Now it's funny, it's funny. It's a funny thing. At the time, when we got to the door, the young doctor, he put his hand on the edge of the door, on the molding, and he looks at us. He raises his eyebrow. He goes, "There's not one ring. There's 3 rings." Okay, all right. The officer was a covering officer, Kenny Menman. Got promoted out of Rescue 4. I don't know how long he had been promoted. He's the officer. So I'm about the senior guy. I am the senior guy working that day. And of course, Jackie Boyle is there, the paratrooper. So we get in the room and we see this guy laying on a gurney in the corner. It's a big room, operating room. He's covered over with a drape. And his eyes, he looks like a trapped rat. You know what I mean? His eyes, he's past embarrassment. It's just like, and he's looking at us. Now what? So Boyle, in his manner, which is somewhat aggressive, goes over, "Let's see what we got here." Let's see what we got. And he throws the drape back. Your brain can't catch up to your eyes. You can't. Your brain can't catch up to your eyes. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing these, I say 1 1/8 ID if they were that, but they were, I would say 1 1/8 ID. And stainless steel. 3 of them up against his pubis, and this tremendously gorged penis, and
only on the show.
And now what? So what we did was we took a little spoon we had that we had narrowed down and slipped it under the 3 rings, cut all 3 at the same time. We floated the room. Kenny Menman, they kept bringing us ringers and isotonic solution, kept bringing bags of it in, and he kept floating it. Well, for our first cut I made, the guy came right off the gurney, right? Because he's got all that infection there, and then and all that, and then heat from the thing. I heated that stainless right away.
Yeah, sure. So you just start cutting.
Yeah, it was full bore, full 20,000 RPMs. Now fooling around with this. So they started bringing us water, and we literally floated the room. It was floating, And so we made the first cut. Now what happens is when I made the cut, his skin wants to go up in the kerf, right? So Harvey Harrell, who died at 9/11, Rescue 5, Harvey, good guy, but again, very conscientious, buff, good guy. So he right away he's going to turn the rings. And the guy goes, no, because his skin is up in there, right?
Yeah, right. He's
So
got a
he
little
says,
pinch.
the guy says, "Let me do it. I know my own pain tolerance." Very words. And he turns the rings to the curve to south, and then I cut the other half. When it cut it and they fell away, of course the doctor grabbed them. They never became trophies for us. Like the picket was on the wall for a long time. But these never became an award for us, or something a token. The doctor grabbed them right away, and we didn't care anyway. It was so serious. The guy rubbed himself like when they came off. Whether he was in deep trouble or not, I can't tell you. Lewis, he had a real major. He had to come to the hospital in a dressing gown. That's how he got to the hospital.
Oh shit.
And whether he had trouble with his genitalia after that, I don't know. I know two nights later, I was coming for a night tour. There were flowers on the table and an invite to dinner.
Man. Hank mentioned that earlier.
You should have lit the torch up.
Hank could have been on that.
We had a few of those like that, similar to that.
Yeah. That's the only one I had. I had one.
Thank God.
Yeah, I had one in St. Vincent with a guy it's either Manel or stainless, which is very, very tough stuff.
Yeah, it's tough to cut. Yeah,
tough to cut or chisel, right? So we went down in the mechanics room in St. Vincent's in the basement, and I hung his ring on an anvil that was on the end of the vise, and I literally chiseled off. He was a huge guy, a big guy, like a big 250, 60-pound guy with big hands, swollen, and a finger twice his size, with a big ring to begin. So I chiseled it off, and I had to, of course, chisel a couple of places to get it off him. And he raised his hand like this. Never said thanks. And I forgot that. I can't believe it. You arrived and go, "Oh, thank you very much." Nothing. Just raised his hand like hallelujah, and ran out of place. That is what
the ring was stolen. That's why.
Franks and beans.
Yeah.
How'd you get that above the?
How'd you get the
beans above the frame? Is Boyle in this photo by any chance?
Hey, it is Hankel.
Let's see. No, he's not. I had another picture that he was in.
Hagen, Hank.
There's Hagen.
Oh, yeah.
O'Brien O'Flaherty, Bill Riley. This is John Driscoll, Eddie Garrity, Bobby Burns. Now, Bobby Burns.
There's a great pick.
Like Hank Millay. Hank Millay, like my son George says, straight shooter. Absolutely straight shooter. And, of course, Newberry. But Bobby Burns there. I think I wrote down no lost motion. He was a 112 guy. He went to rescue pretty young. I think he only had 4 or 5 years when he went to Rescue 1. But he was a great guy with tools, wonderful with tools. Never, ever. He'd tell you about this guy is good, that guy is good. Never tooted his own horn, ever. And yet I was on the fire floor with him. To me, it was like a wonder. He'd like if we're in the hotel, you hit one door after the other. He'd go take a step, boom. Pop. I'm talking about irons. I'm not talking about using the
rabbit tool.
Pop. He'd go to the other side. Pop. Just beauty in motion.
Nice.
Because he's very, very.
Makes your life easy, right? When that's happening like that.
Diamond does it in the rescue and a lot of trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Diamond does it. We know that.
Yeah.
So, Ruffy, what do you want to do here? Do you want to continue on or have a part 2? How are we doing this? Because we're getting late.
Lou, what do you got left? You got a lot of stories left, or are you coming to the end? I don't know what you got. I mean, I know you got stories. I mean, listen, I'm not saying you don't have stories.
Wait, one more. Wait.
Did I didn't tell you any real fire stories, though, did I?
No, but I like hearing about the guys. I like that.
I like talking about the men too. That's the most. I went to, some guys. I never was a guy. I was always in the group. Some call it the Black Cloud. I was always in the crew that was getting their asses handed to them. By the way, and loved it. But I never lamented the ones I missed. I had so many, and you know what? And it seems every place I was, especially in 102, and especially in the rescue, and just the way. And of course, it's luck of the draw, but I had a belly full of and big war bombs. I told you, Lewis. Well, the guys I went in with that day, they're all gone.
Yeah.
They're all gone. And there were other guys down in the pit with me when we were digging them out. Before they were down in there. There's a job. We came from. We heard the two multiples back to back, right? At that job, we knew it was going to be. We knew it was going to be firemen in trouble. We had no idea. So Bobby Burns yells to the bitch box, Moose, Bill Curran, the chauffeur, get ready, we're going to Brooklyn. And sure than hell. He no sooner gets it out of his mouth to show Rescue 1, you're going to box, forget 3300. I remember, whatever it was, the box. You go into that box, at that point, it's 4-4 in the box. So we get over there, and the lieutenant comes around the back of the rig as we pull into the street there, and he says, there are 10 guys missing. You can't believe you're hearing that. Now, I was at 23rd Street. I didn't work there. I was there on standby at 23rd when those guys were killed, but I never worked it. So we go down the street. The brick wall, the side wall of the supermarket, the war bombs, is it's about 20 feet high. There's lapping smoke and fire lapping over the top, the parapet as we come down the street. It looks awful, and yet it's a beautiful, clear day. Summer day, beautiful, clear, bluebird day. And this guy just said 10 guys are missing. So we get to the side door. And Jimmy said, Curran, he says, let me find out what we're going to do here, and of course he's quick. He's getting this. So he comes back and he says, we're going to take Rescue 2's line. We're going to take Rescue 2's line in the side door here. So I go, Lou, let's not get tied down on the line. I go, let's not get tied down on the line. That's what these guys missing. He goes, no. He goes, no. We're going to use the line to get us in there. So with that, Kleehouse and Pete Bondi, they come out the side door. They look like tomatoes. They're crimson red, stuff hanging out of their noses, like us, the face hanging down. They come out the side, and they crawl out, and we're going to go in where they were. When I got in there, I didn't know how I would last in there 5 minutes. We were in there for 2 hours. And we started crawling over the trusses and the sheathing and everything. And now I said, I like 2.5. We have an 1 3/4 line. It's inadequate. Now that they have some large caliber streams working on other parts of the perimeter that are hitting down into the stuff. But where we are, it's wide open above us, but we're on that roofing material, and actually the rain roof really, and all those joists and everything, they're all splintered or whatever, and crawling over it. And you can feel we get hit. We can't put our masks on because you lose all your situational awareness. And it's hairy where we're climbing. We're climbing over this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, if it comes out from underneath this sheathing, we're freaking cooked. And so it's really hairy stuff. But if that's me down in there,
you want somebody coming.
Better believe it. Yeah, and that's what makes us tick.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't some freaking half-hearted guy coming to get me. I want a guy like I know Boyle is
coming to get me.
Right? Right. That's what I want.
When so, and people are coming for you. If you thought in their head that they were thinking half-assed, that they weren't coming for you, you'd be like, "Holy shit, man! I'm screwed,
right."
Yeah.
But
next guy up, please.
Not like that. Those guys are a dime a dozen. So we hung in there, and we'd get hit every once in a while. I get hit with some smoke, just rocket, the heat. And I had to Jimmy. I said, "Jesus, Jimmy, I don't know. I'm not too crazy about this industry, And at that time we were using it a lot for a lot of stuff, but I still was at a 2.5 man. I said I felt it was inadequate, but we never did change. And then while we were in there, the time frame now, I can't tell you the time frame. We're in there a while, moving in all the time, and Bobby Burns and Pete Bondi came back. Never came back. Probably one round up front or whatever. And they're going in between the aisles where the shelves are, and they're going in each bay to bay. Two of them, Bondi in one, Bobby Burns in the other. And one of them, I don't know which one is it. One finds a hook, and then the other one finds a helmet, a truck helmet. And now we know we're close. And with that, I have the nozzle right next to Jimmy Curran. He's right. Actually, at this point, I'm in front of him. He's kind of in back of me, just a little in back of me. I'm in front of him with the nozzle. And he looks back, and he goes, "There they are." And there are two guys supine on their backs, spread eagle on their backs, on top of the shelves.
Oh God!
Like an apparition, totally whole. You really can't believe you're seeing this. And I'm a seasoned guy at this time. This is, I've been around a while. It's like you can't believe you're seeing this. And then there are two of them on their backs, just spread eagled, like they were planted there. So I look at that, and I look away from, because Jimmy's right next to me, and I look away down into the next bay, which is where all the roofing material, tar, and all that stuff is all down in there, and I see a human's entrails. I know they're down there. I hand the line to Mike Wolf, who was another tough guy, tough Irishman. I hand him the line, and I jump right down in the pit because I was the guy who saw them, or saw it. Well, they were all whole, really, and we find 3 of them, and now there's still 10 missing, but actually, the guys were taken to the hospital to mix-ups, so there's only 6. So we don't know this yet. So I get down there, and I go. I said, Jimmy, I think there were 3 down here. I think there were 3 guys down here. He says, count heads. So I said, yeah. I said, I have 3 heads. Yeah, because it's all tarry. I said, we have 3 heads. And so I said, I don't know. I may have the guy here. I'm not sure. I think I have his shoulder. He said, I don't want. He said, I don't want a shoulder. He said, I want a head. It was the fourth guy's chin sticking up through the tar, and it looked just like a shoulder, and it felt like a shoulder, and he was the fourth guy. And then we were in there for another 2 hours, digging them out of all that crap, and then putting them in body bags, of course. And I'll say that here, a couple had to be straightened, and I did that. And that's my brother firefighters, right? So we treated him. It was hard. We were stepping on him and everything down there because eventually Tommy McTeague from Rescue 3 wound up down in the hole. Dennis Horrigan heard it on the radio, came in. He was down there with me. So there were other guys, and there's not a big space, and so we were stepping on them at times, everything else, but just to get them in the body base. But I'll say this: there were screams heard when they fell in. It was not those guys. All 6 were on their backs. They died. Bobby superheated air, killed them right away.
I was going to ask you that, Lou, what you thought. You think it happened fast?
Well, I think it was fast, yeah. I think superheated air, when they fell into that mess, when they fell into the rain roof, really, between that and the cock loft, that's where they fell. And it was probably fully not a...
Yeah, you saw the smoke coming out of that building. I mean, it was chunky as all hell.
Yeah, when they, like I say, for them to all be on their backs. Now, there was a guy from Rescue 2 who was a fireman in Rescue 2. He became a chief too, Valabona. He felt that because he was in Rescue 2, and I don't mean this disrespectfully now, and he became a chief. He told Bobby Babstock that he thought because he was in the rescue that he was able to scramble out through the tin ceiling into the store and got away. He was lucky. The guys that died. They were all on their backs. They never had a chance to scramble, and I never had a chance to talk. I would, if I met Valabona, if he heard this and said, well, what was I talking about? I would be glad to talk to him about it. My opinion is he was fortunate. Yes, being in the rescue. I'm sure he's an experienced guy. And I met him once at a thing. Actually, we testified at the same trial. And I saw him. I never really met him, but who he was chief at that time, and or maybe he wasn't chief, but he was anyway on his way. But I say,
I agree with you.
I say that all 6 were on their backs, and even the guy. Yes, I did see entrails. Whose entrails? I don't know. If I would have known those guys after we got the tar off them, I would have known them. They could be identified. None of them were burned, roasted. They were burned, but they were all recognizable.
Right.
Someone who knew them.
They weren't totally.
No. And the guy who was opened up, of course, there probably was. We weren't busy examining them. We were just trying to get them out of there. We knew they were all going in body bags. And anyway,
Lou, we're about an hour, 2 hours and 20 minutes. What we're probably going to do, we've been chatting between ourselves. We're probably going to have you back on at some point, which we knew.
Sure.
If you want to talk about the book a little bit, or you want to just do the old school tip, we'll talk about the book after. You tell me.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I happen to have 4 tips.
All right, we're gonna do the old school tip of the day.
I'll do the tip of the day. Okay.
All right, hold on.
1 second. Are you ready?
All right, you ready?
Hold on.
Okay.
Go.
Yeah, guys.
I said this.
The old school tip of the day.
Take it away.
All right, Lou, go ahead.
Always think of how you will get out. It sounds simple, right? Also, never tell the old sage you know.
That's words to live by for sure.
All right. But did you get my first one? I lived by that, by the way. I was just fearful enough I could be had on any day like anybody else. But I was always thinking of how I was going to get out of there. So when I say that as a tip, I mean that as a tip, right? And of course, I told the probies this. It's in my book. Often a rescue is running for our life and taking someone with us.
I like it. Oh, yeah.
One more tip. One of my probies, who's now a captain, who came up behind me when he honoring the guys who were in the Vietnam era war. I'm Vietnam era. I wasn't in combat, but when they honored us, came up behind me and he whispered to me, "The 20-foot ladder is the most used and useful ladder in the FDNY." That was something he got from me. And he whispered in my ear. Anyway,
I hated that ladder.
Those are my tips.
Very good. Very good.
Right.
Like it.
Thank you.
Lou, well
I love
done.
the young guys, by the way. I love the young guys. Period. You know, you gotta love them. They're youthful. But I did. You know what? I handled a few public. You know, I had about maybe anywhere from 600 to 1,000. I never really counted. I did, I think, 3 schools, three classes, which I think there were 200 a class, at least, and it may have been another one. I'm not sure. But I found most of them would do it.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's the case today.
I wasn't sure, but you never know. Like both my sons know. The little guy that sits in the corner and almost dribbles and can hardly talk is the meanest guy in the nozzle. You can't always tell. You can't always tell who
That's
the real
true.
tough guys are. Right?
That is true.
Yeah. Some of the guys that talk tough are not so tough.
Ah.
We all know that one.
Yeah, we know those
talk
guys.
the talk.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you this, Lou. Just a quick thing before we sign off. Kevin and I, if we hadn't been doing this, I might think a certain way that the job is shot or it's gone. Right? Every time your time is the best time, right? And anybody who's come after you is right. But Kevin and I, we see a lot of young guys at the shows that we go to, and obviously from doing this, and we say all the time, we think we got a good shot that it's going to continue. You know what I mean? There's a lot of really good guys, and
it's a good selection process. What's wrong is there were people getting through in the past wouldn't have got through. There are people there that aren't getting through that wouldn't have got through. But you know what? The guys that want it are still going for it.
Yeah, it's always going to rise to the top. The cream's always going to rise.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah.
You want to talk about your book a little bit, where we can get that book?
I would love to. Yeah. Well, FSP, which was or is owned by Ira Hoffman up in Massachusetts, they carried my book a lot. They also carry John Norman's book. They carry Hagen's books. I say Hagen's books, John Norman's books. But anyway, they carry their books, and of course they carried mine. And they were when it first came out 10 years ago. When it first came out, I had put some nice write-ups on the book. And anyway, so that's one. It's also on Amazon. Can be had on Amazon. And for a while, I dealt with Barnes and Noble, but I don't deal with them anymore. And I guess that's it. Really, I would say FSP books in Massachusetts and Amazon.
I'm going to put the links in the description so anybody who's listening can go to that and they could find it as well.
Okay, thank you.
In the chat as well.
I got the pleasure of meeting Ira at a trade show up in Massachusetts.
Did you really? I never met him. Talked to him on the phone.
Yeah, sure.
Is that right? How old is he?
He's up there, but he sent me a whole bunch of statistics on runs and workers, like for the history of the job. He's big.
Oh, I remember that.
Well, he's
I
a
remember
buff.
that.
Yeah, he's a
he's
real
buff.
buff.
Big buff. Well, he's a little guy, but little buff. Big buff, little guy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Big ring on though.
I don't know how much. Would you like to hear why I wrote the book?
Sure.
Yeah, quick. Yep.
Sure. Okay. Well, of course, when I came in when it went in the job, I couldn't believe they were. See, I wasn't a buff, right? I wasn't a volunteer, and I was a paid fireman, and I couldn't believe. But I loved it so much, I couldn't believe they were paying me for the job, and after a while, I wanted to convey the caliber of the men that are in that job. We could go on forever. I could go on forever. And just my experience, never mind all of our experience. The guys in the job, the heroism, which is like a joke. Bobby Babsack used to say, good truckmen, they're a dime a dozen. They're banging into each other in the hallway. Facts, right?
Fact.
The aggression or aggressiveness, the intelligence, the best of anything are always highly intelligent. And that goes the same with the fire department. All the great heroes we know, all the great heroes were always intelligent guys. And the fire department has quite a lot of it because, again, the selection process. There's a lot of they're mostly working class guys. But on the construction site, they'd be the intelligent laborer.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're just I wanted to convey, and of course, I broke in with World War II guys. They were so dutiful, and for the most part, they didn't talk rough. They didn't talk rough. For like a new guy, I wasn't a kid. I was 25 years old, but I was still a young guy. The way I got treated was, I felt like I was treated like gold. I was the new guy. I had a lot to learn and stuff. And I want to say more about this. My partner in the Proby school was Billy Donald, who was one of the guys John Norman mentioned, and Joe Ball. We were all Probies together.
From 216, 108?
Right. Well, Joe Ball was John Ball was in 216. His brother Joe was in 230.
Billy Donald, though, he was 108?
Who?
You said Billy Donald? Is that who you
said? Billy Donald was at 124. He was Lieutenant 124.
Oh.
But and I forget where he was as actually he originally went to 288 when it was an engine. It wasn't.
Is that right?
Right. And it was a mistake. and where we went from there, I don't know. But we were very good friends in Proby school. And there were four of us. Not one of us, I think, could hit 160 pounds. It was Billy Donald, me, this Rudy DeMaria, and Bob Rochon, who was later in 175. Us four guys, because of really Billy Donald, because he was so schooled in a lot of the techniques. When we did any of the engine work, we were always the first guys. We always got done first. And they used two of us to do the slide at the graduation, and the big thing is, I have to say, I could, even with John Norman when I first met him, how the hell does this guy?
Yeah, he's a thin guy. He was a thin guy too, right?
Because he's 15 years behind me, but what I mean is John is such a knowledgeable man.
Oh yeah.
But all those guys from there, that Inwood, they were the balls, high, and John probably too, or high IQ guys. I mean for real.
Oh, so Bill Donald was my lieutenant in 117.
All right, there you go. Well, we were buddies. We were 26 and 27. We were always together.
That's why I was at my Patty Lee from 124. He was my lieutenant 117 as well. So he was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Billy and I, we were very, very good friends through the years, because I knew his brother Pete, because Pete was in 209 when I was in 102. And, anyway, John Norman mentioned that, with these guys, I said, holy mackerel. And I just missed John Norman when he came to 230, when he was looking to find a place. I just missed him because I had just got to 102. I just 69 went to 102, and that's when we went to 230. But and Joe Boyle, that was another piece of work. Super bright guys, truly super bright. There's no way to exaggerate it.
Yeah.
But cool about it. Really, totally one of the boys. But they're super bright guys.
Lou, we're gonna have you back on. I think we gotta get some more stories out of you.
It was a lot of fun.
It was our pleasure. Believe
I
me.
will say this: I'm not a guy who, I was never a guy who told fire stories.
Well, I got to tell you, your love for the job and your love for the guys you work with come through in all your stories, no doubt. 100%.
Thank you very much. I love the job. I mean, still love the job. Get out of there. But it was the men, definitely the men, but you want fire stories?
We'll get some fire stories at you.
Yeah, I can. And if any of you get to read my book,
I'm going to read it. I'm reading it already.
You read it, okay.
I'm waiting for mine.
The next time
it's in the mail today.
We'll load it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, by the way.
We will. I will be in touch with you. Don't worry. We'll figure out a date. We'll do the same thing. We'll go through the dates.
I tell you, this is an honor.
It's our honor.
Well, all the great guys I knew. I mean, great. That were really great. They didn't get a chance to do this.
Yeah.
And here I am with you guys and getting it out there. And
that's what we want. Get it out there.
That's what makes it all worthwhile.
Let me tell you, I appreciate it. And
thank you.
Just wonderful. Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, stay. Just hang loose there, Lou. We're gonna just go sign off. Get our stuff going here, and we're gonna sign off. Okay, Kobe.
All right, guys. We're gonna hit our little closing outro. Stand by.
Well, thank you first and foremost for tuning in to another episode of the Gettin' Salty Experience. Think we're out of good content? Ha! Far from it. If you want to find us on the audio side, you can do so on all the players. We're available on, yes, I said that correctly, all the players. Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, that's where we are. And if you're here tonight, congratulations. You found us on the Gettin' Salty Experience, which if you're not already subscribed, please do so. It's free, cost you nothing. You can also like and share, which also costs you nothing and helps us grow the audience of the show. You can also find us on social media if you so please. Of course, we're on Instagram where Lou posts great FDNY content from yesteryear. We're also on TikTok. Tangamus Prime is on top of that. And we're also on LinkedIn too, where yours truly, Mike McBob Cologne, is on top of things on that front. Head on over to GettinSaltyApparel.com, by the way, for all kinds of great merchandise, apparel, and accessories. There is the Super Chat, too. We thank each and every one of you for your support. You can open up your wallet and donate an amount of your choosing during the program. After all, you guys, yes, you guys are our number one sponsors. Super thanks as well. If you missed the show live, you can show support through that means. If you still wish to open up your wallet, the super thanks is basically a thank you after the fact for another great episode of ours. The Facebook fan page is in existence too, now over 60,000 strong and continuing to grow. It's not created by us at the Gettin' Salty Experience, but it is nevertheless a great way to connect with firefighters from all over and fans of the show alike. If you want to advertise with the Gettin' Salty Experience, send your information on over to gettinsaltyads@gmail.com. And if you have any questions or have a guest suggestion, please send them to gettinsaltyexperience@gmail.com with the necessary contact information. And finally, if you have content for anything else, please send them to koobspodcast@gmail.com. Of course, that's Kevin Kubler's secondary email. And that's where you could send things like rig photos, firehouse kitchen tables, fire videos, helmet cam videos, tattoos, mustache photos, and yes, photos for the unofficial Hot Old Ladies contest that we may or may not be holding, allegedly. Thanks once again for tuning in to the Gettin' Salty Experience.
And the truth is they are, right?
They are.
All right, guys. Good luck to Roofies Rangers. We'll see you Thursday night. And don't forget to email Louie and tell him we want pizza cutters. All right. That's all I got. Lou, thanks so much. We'll have you on again. Really appreciate your stories and
pleasure.
everything you've done for the
It
job.
was our honor, believe me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well,
all right, fellas. We'll see you Thursday night. Till then, stay low and go.
And God bless America.
God bless America.
Love it.
See you at the big one, everybody.
More patriots here. Okay.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.